Hey, it is Friday, and it's Bring It In, TrueHoop's Zoom from Quarantine show. Fridays with me, Jarod, Hector, and Coach Thorpe. How are you, sir?
Well, I wish I could show off. I won't, but my wife bought me one of my Father's Day gifts was a Chris Farley shirt. So I have a big Chris Farley face on there. She buys me the best t-shirts. No, I'm good. After watching these games, and I listened to a podcast this morning. We're just getting really interesting, entertaining games that are mostly very competitive to the end. Not always, but I love watching them. We're lucky to be seeing it.
Two quick things. First, on Chris Farley, I always think of so many things. Of course, all his iconic SNL skits, and I always think of, the movie with David Spade, Fat Guy Little Coat.
Yeah.
Right. That fat guy little coat always comes to mind.
Yeah.
And this time of year is always interesting, Coach, because I get to Black Sheep, very good. I get to the point where I'm like, we're running out of basketball. It used to be 3 games a night. Now it's 1, and now it's not even every night. It's like every other. And then when the finals get here, it's really every other night or every 2 nights. But we have European football championships going on. Wimbledon's coming up. So this is actually an excellent time of the sports calendar. That was Tommy Boy. Correct, Randy, not Black Sheep. Two movies with David Spade and Chris Farley. And the Olympics. So this is actually a sweet spot of the calendar if you are a sport fan in general. So this is exciting times. But let's jump in, Coach. Last night, I was watching Suns Clippers like everybody else was. And I said, man, look, the defense that the Clippers were playing, particularly in that second half, first half too, but in that second half, man, they just really got into them. And you said before we started, it was clear Ty Lue started Pat Bev and Terrence Mann to get that defensive intensity there. And you saw it on the pick and rolls, particularly for Book and for CP3. Those guys had no space. Those dudes were literally in their shorts. And if you've got guys attached to you on pick and roll and you're the lead ball handler, that makes your job very, very difficult. What did you see last night in that game?
I mean, what you said, I could talk for days on what I saw last night. I really paid attention. But remember going back in the Jazz series game 3 and 4, there's 8 quarters total. I thought the Clippers played almost hair on fire defense for maybe 6 of those last 8 quarters. That is not what we've seen in this series. There's different reasons for it. I think even in game 3, Ty Lue said, I'm starting T-Man and Pat Bev. I'm not starting Marcus Morris. That was an adjustment. They didn't go small. Zubac still played. He started. He was terrific last night. But I felt like the Clippers I felt like Ty Lue said, let's hang in there in the first half because we are short of stars. We're not short of bodies. They're a very deep team. We're short of stars. So we can't gas out Paul George with intense as hell defense for 4 quarters. And then at halftime, I thought they just turned it up, which isn't all that uncommon. Coaches do sometimes do that. Teams have done that. I thought they ratcheted up. I thought Pat Bev and T-Man brought it for 4 quarters. I thought they were. I think they're on the whiteboard it said something like no free breaths for Devin Booker.
Mm-hmm.
He's already got the broken nose and the mask.
Mm-hmm.
Always in his face, on him, connected to him, harassing him. It may not work, but we've got to try that, especially without fouling.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll say this, and we'll talk about this later maybe too. At this point right now, no matter what happens going forward, given what we've seen with the Clippers in this postseason, run this team back. Run this team back next year. I don't know that there's been a couple of decisions, and Kawhi gets a big decision. Let Ty Lue get his hooks into this team in a full, regular, year-round situation that isn't so COVID broken, because they've shown a resiliency. This is the 3rd time. It's never happened before. Now, of course, not a lot of teams go down 2-0, but they've gone down 2-0 3 times. They should be up 2-1. I mean, Paul George makes those threes. Who knows what the future is? But there's a real good. I mean, the odds are they're up 2-1. Now, I don't know what's going to happen with Kawhi, whatever. Do you think he comes back?
I do, because I think.
Do you really?
I do, because Kawhi, the big thing for Kawhi is let him live in San Diego, right, and come up to the games, right. His whole thing was he wanted to be home and close to family. Going to Miami, that's not home or close to family, right? Like going to wherever, Denver, that's not home or close to family. Like I think the setup he has in LA with the Clippers and within an organization works, and we'll get to something else about that in a little bit. On the floor, though, coach, like I just, obviously adjustments, it's what you do in the series, and players make adjustments, right? Like, so Booker knows, okay, they're going to attach them like this. The ref seems to be giving a much looser whistle here and not calling things so tightly. All right, I'll make an adjustment. Do you think if you're the Suns, maybe not in part of it too, Chris Paul getting back reinserted into the game, right? That's a feel out process again, because we've played X amount of games without him, right? How does it feel? What about an adjustment from Phoenix where instead of setting the pick and roll where they set it now, which is, pretty much the top of the key, setting it up higher, maybe right at as soon as you cross half court. That way, there's a lot more room when Booker comes off the screen, and now you're chasing him in space versus setting it top of the key. There's too many bodies in the middle. Is that something that the Suns can do in terms of adjusting?
I'm sure they can do it. The reason why they don't do it is, unlike Steph Curry and Trae, Devin Booker's not pulling the 30-foot three. So when you set a screen higher up on the floor, the defensive guard on Booker just goes under the screen, right? It doesn't mean you still can't get Booker going downhill. You can. He can reject the screen. The GIF that we had in the article that we published this morning on Trae Young, where he just left Drew Holiday and Bobby Portis didn't come out and he shimmied before he shot it. That was a screen rejection. So in other words, Trae Young showed going left but came back right. Drew Holiday stayed home. Drew messed up on that.
Mm-hmm.
You're not supposed to switch a rejection.
Mm-hmm.
He just assumed, look at him, Drew was just standing there. You can keep playing it, Judy, if anyone's watching. Drew needed to get over the top or even under. Get over there somehow. Somebody guard Trae. Well, the rejection is something that Booker is good at. And so setting a screen up higher means maybe he can get downhill more. He probably can a little bit. I think Phoenix just, I tweeted this, I think 2 minutes into the game. I said to Henry on a call before the game, like, Phoenix has to play bad at some point. Yeah. You don't just keep playing great every game. No one does.
Yeah.
And I think we saw a less than good effort by Phoenix.
Yep.
Not just physical effort, mental focus, just pure shooting.
Mm-hmm.
What I love about Monty Williams is he called him out on it.
Yep.
Early.
Mm-hmm.
Early. And I want to towards the end, I want to really talk about three amazing coaches right now in the postseason. And he's one of them, Monty is, but they just played badly. And I think your point on CP, I thought he looked rusty. I agree with you. I didn't think he looked
11 games. Yeah.
It's understandable that he'd be rusty. I also think the Clippers are playing defense like we've never seen them play defense before. So look at it this way, Jarod. I think this will help understand it really good. Years ago, when I was a young coach and I was dealing with a lot of college coaches who were recruiting my players, I'm a curious dude and I ask a lot of questions. And so one question I always ask is, how do I get players to be quicker? And I got a great answer once by a guy who's now a director of G League scouting for the Milwaukee Bucks. He said, anticipation. Such a smart answer. It's common sense. I didn't think of it. Well, in the best defense, you are anticipating your rotations. If you wait for the ball to be passed or caught, too late.
Yep.
You've got to start it. It doesn't mean you have to anticipate too early because they'll fake pass you. The Clippers are really anticipating. Everyone's on a string. They're flying around. It doesn't mean you can't score in them. Of course you can. It just makes things a little bit harder. You've got to make an extra pass or an extra dribble, fake pass throw. They're making it harder. So even if Chris Paul gets his rust off, so to speak, the Clippers are just playing better defense. Now, as you see, I had forgotten this after watching the game. You brought it up before air, Campaign being hurt. Like, that's a big deal. He was playing out of his mind. In fact, he was playing as good as Chris Paul can play in that one game, in game two. So if he can get back being healthy, do we know a diagnosis on him yet?
I think it might have been precautionary because it looked like I want to say Paul George fell on top of his ankle. So I think they were just like, all right, he wasn't in a boot or anything that I saw or anything like that. So it might just be like, all right, an ankle tweak. And instead of we're up 2-0, so we have a little bit of a luxury, right? Yeah. So let's just, let's chill and we'll see how he is for game 4. In that game, coach, we talk about Zubac and how good he was and how, how well the matchups going between him and Ayton. In game 1, the Suns were able to exploit Zubac in space, right? Particularly when they would go in the drop coverage, right? Booker would come off the pick and roll, and Zubac is not going to come out because he knows he's going to get blown by. And Booker just pulls up for the mid range. that piece wasn't there. A large part of it was because of the defender being attached to Booker and CP3. But what are you seeing about from Zubac defensively that's making him so well these last 2 games?
So when you're in drop, this is something we're talking about with the Bucks because of what Trae Young did to them with floaters in game 1. If you start low, which who wouldn't want their big guy to start right around the rim almost, right? Except for the defensive 3 seconds, you just let them park there. And so then you show with the contest hand, but you can't show too aggressively because you've got the lob potentially coming on pick and roll, when they go downhill. But if you start higher up, you can both distract or contest the floater. You make the lob pass a little bit tougher because you might get a deflection. These are super tall guys, right? And you do give up the chance to get blown by. But these guys are agile dudes. And I think that they're more capable than they realize sometimes of showing higher and then recovering back and making a play. And do you remember, I think Mark Jackson talked about how Zubac can't show out because he'll get beat at the rim and then just fucking block the hell out of a shot pretty late in the game. I remember it might have been Booker's shot. Like, these are super tall, long guys that are more agile. If they stay low on the contest, so hand goes up but the butt stays down, then if that guard decides to go to the rim, it's just one step for them and they can potentially block it. They won't block everyone, but now the guard has to be thinking, oh, this fucking 7-footer is coming after me. He can't just lay it up normally. No, he's got to put some craft to it. Long armed, high off the glass, whatever. Those are hard shots to make. Yeah. That's why you see a lot of guys miss, right?
Yep.
And so that's what I think they do. I think this is just a guess. I think the Clippers just did a great job of coaching Zubac, I call him Zubeast, in the off day about you can do this. You can protect us more in what I call the second box and protect us in the first box. Not everyone can, but you, young man, can do this. And so he did. And I thought it looked like someone really breathed some spirit into him because I thought he was a monster. That's why I call him Zubeast. He was a beast all game.
He was.
Ayton has been so good in the postseason, and he was good yesterday, but if Zubeast can even just play him even, that's a big win for the Clippers, right?
Huge.
And I thought he did. Yeah. I thought he might have been better. He was a monster on the glass.
Yep.
Like I just keep thinking the Pelicans could have had him for nothing if they did the deal with Anthony Davis. Nothing.
Yeah.
They wouldn't have not thrown him in the deal. They gave the Clippers for nothing. And so someone on Twitter, a smart man, said, do you like the matchup of Zubeast and Zion together? Because isn't he like Steven Adams? No, he's not like Steven Adams. He's way more mobile. He's 24 years old.
Yeah, he's getting better.
Zion's the point guard of that team anyway. And if you really don't think they can play together because it's, you need a shooting 5, let's say, you think you're gonna have trouble trading that guy for something valuable? He's really damn good. Again, he's 24. And let me say something else. Maybe I've missed it. It's certainly possible that I have. I was really focused on how vocal he was. This is the one thing that the average person just doesn't understand is how, if you walked into my high school gym when I was a serious coach, you would have been shocked at how much we're talking because I really stressed it. But compared to grown men who are way smarter than my teenage boys, who really know what they're talking about, they're talking all the time. KG was the king. And I don't just mean chatter like in baseball, hey, better. Talking, teaching. Hey, I'm here. Bring him here. Send him there. Hey, Lou, come over, help. I saw Zubeast's mouth. His mouth was moving a lot. I think he looked like his diaphragm was expanding. Like I think he was engaging that way as a quarterback. That's a big deal for the Clippers on defense. If Zubeast is your quarterback, is your anchor on defense that way, like a Marcus Saul, that's a big game changer for them. Not just this year, but going forward. So that's what I think really happened. I think he understood his role better. And I think Pat Bev was a pain in the ass, and T-Man and George, obviously. I think George had 15 rebounds in the game. Like the Clippers did rebound great. They gave up a couple key offensive rebounds when I thought the game was in the balance. It turns out they won pretty comfortably anyway, but they got to clean that up for sure. When Zubac is out of the game, especially, even when he is in the game, other guys got to help. You can't just be Paul George too, because Phoenix has a lot of athletes. And I think Monty really stresses that too, especially when the Clippers go small. Let's pound them in the paint.
I think you hit so many good points there. Like the confidence of Zubac, and we'll talk about confidence with Trae Young later.
Yeah.
Like that was so big, but also the point you meant, it was a technique thing they fixed, right? The
I
idea
think so.
that if your butt's low and your hands up, right, you can much easier retreat, right,
Yeah.
and get back to the rim. But if he gets up tall because he's so big, then you're cooked, right? Because the rate for me to go back down at that size, little 6'5" Devin Booker, he can get back much quicker than I can, right? And so I think that's a brilliant point. You mentioned Pat Bev. He was incredible. As good as he was on the Phoenix side, I'm going to talk about, there were shots where I think he for sure bothered Book, CP3, whomever, but also shots in the mid-range that Book and Chris just missed that they normally make, right? So it's this, kind of push-pull. Like if they make 4 more buckets, like what are we talking about, right? And they didn't shoot well. They were both, I think, a combined, 10 of like a million. They weren't good. But again, shots that they can normally hit. So I think, if you're Phoenix, I don't know if you're freaking out, but you're looking at it, okay, some of these were bad because these guys play really good defense. What can we do here? But there were makeable shots that we missed last night.
I want to bring up something on Pat Bev. So you remember in games 1 and 2, when he wasn't on the court, he was an assistant coach. And I don't know what he was saying, if it was smart or dumb. I can assume it's smart, but it doesn't matter almost. The energy he was bringing. And so Kawhi Leonard, let me be clear about this. You cannot be an elite player and not have a brilliant basketball mind. Okay, you don't need a brilliant basketball mind to be a very good player. Okay, I don't know where Michael Porter Jr. is yet on this spectrum. I can guess where Jordan Clarkson is on this spectrum. That doesn't mean these guys can't really score. But to get to the level of Kawhi Leonard, you have a computer brain. There's just too many things happening all at once, all the time, and you see it in slow motion like a superhero. And so I don't like it when you sit up in a suite with your family. I wanted to be Pat Bev or Jamal Murray. Like, this is Kawhi Leonard. No one doesn't respect him, right? No one doesn't respect anything this guy says. He's one of the game's best players in the world with 2 rings, right? The max player he's earned all of it on both ends. I want him on the bench teaching. And I mean, I know that they say, well, he's not really demonstrative. Well, damn it, this is the NBA Western Conference Finals. Now is the time to quiet and not be comfortable. Go ahead and open up and really, really coach these guys and act like you care. I know he does care. I don't see reason why he wouldn't care.
Right.
It's a big thing with me I love seeing Jamal Murray and those guys do it.
And so I responded to you on that on Twitter. And for me, my position is like, one, he's in the building. So that doesn't, if from a coaching standpoint, I get what you're saying.
Yeah.
What I want to know is, how do the Clippers feel about it? How do his teammates, how does Ty Lue, how does the organization feel about it? If I can give them truth serum, answer me honestly. Where would you prefer him being? If they're like, we don't care, then I don't care. So, but if they care, then I care.
Of course you're right. Of course you are right. If indeed the team's like, whatever, we're pros, right. I'm just telling from experience. Yeah. I don't think that's the case.
Probably not.
And do you see James Harden during their series?
Yeah, oh yeah. He was up and down doing his thing.
This guy is as smart as any coach around. It doesn't mean he's a good coach because he's still a player, but in terms of knowledge of the game,
he's coaching he's like, no, when they come here, you go this way. Right. Like, he's the whole time.
These guys, so you liked what I talked about, Zubac staying lower, arms up. That is one of 3,000 things I could talk to you about that I know players are thinking about. And I'm not James Harden. Think about what Harden has gone through. Think about what he's seen, right? Think about Kawhi has seen when teams are saying, we've got to stop him. We're talking about, and this is something we work on, is just the angle of our sneakers, and the angle of our hips. And we break it down by degree. Like, I can watch a player shoot in my gym, and because it's the same ceiling all the time from the same spot, I can tell they need another 3 degrees of arc or take it down 2 degrees. Not because I'm some genius. I can just look on the spot on the ceiling as it crosses and tell, right? As long as the size of the players are the same. Kawhi knows more than almost anyone could ever understand and impart all of that. Unless Ty has said, Kawhi, we got this. You rest up there. And I do think if his knee was in danger, then fine. But no, I don't believe if his son was sitting on his lap, there's enough space now in these games. I guess it's the NBA rule that they 5 or 6 rows or whatever, right? There's no fans for COVID reasons. So sit there, or sit in the end zone. There's all these places have, places behind the basket, and come over and talk to Paul George like he's on his own now. There's no other superstar that knows what he's facing better than Kawhi on the Clippers team. None of those guys have gone through what Kawhi's gone through. What Paul George has the target fully on his chest, right? Like it's all about making things hard on Paul George. And I think I'd like him to say Kawhi. It'd be cool to see him down there for game 4. I think it'd be cool.
I think something you mentioned is interesting. We'll get to the Hawks Bucks next. The idea that Kawhi, someone needs to bring that side out of him, right? Because it's known. We know this, and I'm talking to people. Like communicating in that manner, that's not his thing, right? So who can create an environment where you teach Kawhi, okay, it's okay to be uncomfortable, dude. Here's how. You don't got to talk every time. But when you see something where you're like, oh my God, you should have done that, easily go, hey, Paul, or hey, whomever. Next time that happens, this is what I see. Something simple, right? But get him to a point where he feels comfortable doing that and whomever's giving him license to do it, right? Because he's clearly I lead by example guy, right? Like that is clearly where he's comfortable. You see me doing the work and I do that and you follow. But when you're not out there, what else can you bring for us, right? Can we bring that side out of you? And I think that's another challenge as a coach.
Yeah, we need to be paying attention to it. I'm last thing on this. So props to Devin Booker. Like I didn't know his nose was broke. He's wearing a mask. I thought it was broken when I saw it, but you couldn't tell it was broke the way he played. It wasn't like he was soft.
No.
Think about that. Like these are gigantic men of which he's diminutive.
Broken in 3 places. It had to get reset.
Oh, geez.
Oh, yeah.
So everything hurts. Hit your shoulder, it hurts your nose, right? Hit your arm, it hurts your nose. Like it's all connected. These are gigantic men, and it's a tough dude.
Book is not soft at all. Like that is, he's a real one. I'll say that. So you published something today, Coach, for us on TrueHoop about Hawks versus Bucks, and I love it because one of the first things you say is, "How about we guard Trae Young?" That's first thing. Let's try that. So let's talk a little bit about what you think, Bud, and yes, somebody guard Trae Young. That's just the first thing. So it wasn't that the Bucks weren't guarding Trae Young. It's just that they weren't doing it well, and you think they were doing some poor things. So let's elaborate a little bit on that.
So first of all, I'm sure that's Henry or Jessica's title. Mine was guard Trae Young, and then I was sarcastic with the lower line of maybe guarding would be a good idea. I don't ever feel sarcasm typically, but I knew they were going to change it, so I just had fun with it. To me, and I wrote this, it looked like they treated Trae Young as if he's just another good guard, and that's Trae Young. Like we are now at a point where if we can agree that overall, over the course of a regular season, Luka Doncic, who's going to be a league MVP in this league, is better, which we could argue degrees, than Trae. I am now telling you that in the postseason, I don't no longer see it as 1-2. It's both super elite. I'm not telling you that Luka can't take the Hawks to the Eastern Conference Finals. I don't know that he can or can't. He plays in the West. But I'm just telling you, this dude is magical. And so to think that you're going to solve him with your base defense and Brook Lopez at the rim and Bobby Portis having no idea what he's doing defensively, no, they're going to lose the series, and I think they can win the series. I really do. But they've got to change some things. So, the first thing I have is this is the lowest hanging fruit. Jeff Teague may play. He didn't play at all the second half. He played 6 minutes in the first half. 2 when Trae was in the game, and Trae scored 8 points on 3 shots, and Jeff failed defensively. I mean, you can play good defense and don't score. He didn't play good defense, and he scored easier. It was like he was at practice, which I think we wrote that. So that's the first thing is, and again, Jeff didn't play the second half. If we see him again, it'll be when Trae Young's not in the game. So that's a given. And then it's more of what we're talking about with Zubac. The guard has to be more involved bothering Trae Young when he comes off of ball screens downhill. I listened to Tim Bontemp say today on I think Zach Lowe's pod that he thought that the defense worked, that Trae Young really, I think he finished 1 of 7 from floaters. No, he was 17 of 34 for the game. It didn't work. Okay. And you fouled him a bunch too, and he did acknowledge that. Like, I don't think a good defensive strategy is letting Trae Young get downhill and shoot his floaters. They're like layups to him. I think you need to crowd him at all times. It means you go over the top of the screen. Okay. If you refuse it, you still got to stay connected. If he beats you, you have to stay connected and you have to get your arms up as a guard to make him think about your arm. And the point I made is try throwing a wadded piece of paper in a trash can. It's easy. It's close to you. Now do it while you're looking at your phone some. It's just not going to make as many, right? It's a distraction. So they need to distract him. They need to distract him with the nearest guard. And then the bigs got to, just like we talked about here with Booker, you've got to start up earlier and be ready to retreat as a big to contest the lob. But here's the other thing. If you watch the Clippers series, Ayton had a bunch of lob dunks in games 1 and 2. How many did he have last night?
Maybe once, twice.
I don't remember any, but I'm not saying he didn't have it.
Yeah, not a lot.
They were pinching in from the weak side and stealing it. Or contesting it and not letting him finish. The Bucks can do the same thing. They've got it. So if you're gonna lift your defensive big up into the second box, higher into the second box, you better get weak side help from the opposite corner, opposite wing to help on the lob that they'll throw to Capella. And then the other thing too is, this is super important, Jarod. When I've helped prepare players to guard the Trae Youngs of the world, the Steph Currys, I've said you cannot escape step. It's a defensive thing, or retreat step, when they're shake and baking from the 3, because they're going to shake and bake you backwards and shoot the 3. So you've got to stay up, and that's going to let them go by. You remember what the Utah Jazz did against Harden a couple years ago when his sidestep 3 was killing the world? Rubio played on top of Harden. It didn't work, but that was the idea, is we're not letting this dude shoot 3s against us anymore and fouling him some. We're driving him into Rudy Gobert. So you don't have to be that crazy, but you got to stay connected. And if Trae Young shakes you, which no one can stay in front of him so far, stay connected, Jrue Holiday, as close as you can to his hip without fouling him. Get your arm up, bother him, make him think about you a little bit, and then get your bigs arms up early.
Yep.
So they were approaching him too late. By the time you get your arm up, it's gone. You've got to already have it up there. And that might inhibit him from shooting it too. And then the other thing I wrote about is you've got to mix up your coverages. You've heard about mixed up coverages. The average fan doesn't really understand probably what that means. If Trae Young knows you're just going to stay home, Brook Lopez,
gonna kill
I know as long as I drag my defender into the screen, I've got an open floater. There's a peace of mind to that, right? If I'm not sure what's going to happen, well, now I'm thinking a little bit. I'm in my thoughts some, and I'm just not going to do as well typically. That's the whole game, is to make them do stuff they don't normally do or make them unsure, create doubt. The Bucks were so vanilla in game 1. They've got to add a lot of spice to their defense in game 2. And then I think if they do, they got a real shot.
Yeah. I mean, if you look at, like, on paper, right, the Bucks should win this series, right? They've got a lot more weapons. They have the things defensively that can hurt the Hawks. They didn't do it in game 1, as you pointed out. And then, of course, Nate McMillan can make adjustments, right? They did something simple, which a lot of teams do when you're trying to get a good defender off your primary ball handler, right? The double screen, right? And it's just like, and we saw it on that one play. I mean, Jrue just stopped. He hit the first screen, went the other way. I'm like, where's he going? And that's when Trae's sitting there shaking and shimmying before he shoots the 3, right? Like, there are different things I think that will happen in this series. And, for Milwaukee, you could say it's game 1. They've been starting their game 1s a little bit slowly, all playoffs. You kind of wasted a Jrue Holiday game, right? He had 30 offensively. How often are you going to get that game from him? Now you could say,
to me, that's the big question. Okay, so the question isn't, is Chris Middleton going to play this badly every game? The odds are no. He's a great player. The question is this the Jrue Holiday we're going to see every game? I've been asking for this for 2 series now. Not the Miami series, but the previous series against Brooklyn. He's got to be a bully ball player. He's got to be a bully ball player and make his 3s. It's a mindset for him. He doesn't love it. He doesn't love it. Even in this last game, I thought late in the game, he just didn't want to be the shooter. He's not Ben Simmons, right? But he's not gunning the ball. I want him to think like Jordan Clarkson actually late in games. Just go do your thing last 4 minutes. Go do your thing. I trust you. That's what I would say. I trust you to make the right play. He needs to do that, I think, for them to win the series anyway. And I agree with you. I think they are the better team because of DeAndre Hunter. And I'm old school. I do like that they've gone through so much, like the Clippers. I think that brings you to a better resolve.
They have adversity for sure.
I'm not surprised the Suns didn't have a ton of energy. They're all human beings, with the exception of Kawhi Leonard. Everyone in the league is a human being for sure, right? So they haven't lost a game in weeks. the Suns. I think they felt like we got these guys. Kawhi's not there, and it's not a conscious thing. It's an unconscious thing that they don't have to get to that extra level, and they do.
Yep.
And I think Milwaukee knows how to get there. Like I think we'll see a really spirited effort. Hopefully there'll be some adjustments by Milwaukee. Hopefully Giannis will continue to attack. Jarod, I want to say this, and I want to get your opinion on it too. I cringe every time I hear any announcer. It's often Mark Jackson. It's not always Mark Jackson though. When they talk about settling.
Yeah.
But there's no context to what they're saying.
Right.
If the context is the rim is walled up and there's 6 seconds on the clock, and I stop and shoot a mid-range shot, that's smart.
Right.
If the rim is wide open and there's 15 seconds on the clock and I do that, that would be called settling. But very often when these guys are shooting the ball, it's a good shot.
Yeah.
For different reasons. So I just want to say that for anyone listening when they're watching games, be a little bit more nuanced in your judgment over whether or not someone's settling. For Giannis, though, he needs to pretty much almost always go near the rim 100%. And then pass out, but because just shooting is a problem.
100%. I'm with you there. I think, part of it's TV and part of it's how do I make this digestible, right? And it's also assumptions you're making about the people who are watching, right? And this is the thing we talk about with NFL. The NFL doesn't do this, right? And the nature of that game allows them to, because there's a break in the action every 10 seconds, right? So they can go, all right, and they can stop it, freeze frame, draw, and do all that to make it feel like, ooh, you don't have that time in basketball because the game is continuous. So oftentimes the old trope has just been you do things in small snackable sound bites, right? Which is I'm getting out of the way and letting so-and-so go one-on-one, right? It's all those little things that work for people's brains and stories, heroes, villains, right? That's just what they do. We know when we watch like this, but that's not actually what it is. And to your point, no, that's actually that pull-up jumper with the rim walled off. That's an excellent shot. That is not settling. But you have to explain that.
Right. Especially like think of Devin Booker. He isn't, he actually is pretty athletic jumping. Did he win a slam dunk contest? He was in one. I don't watch him. He was in one.
He's excellent. He's a really good athlete.
Yeah. I think. He isn't super fast and quick. He jumps really high, but he gets great elevation on his shot. And he also lifts it high too. And so it's almost uncontested. Paul George, these guys, Paul's got a little fit. Every time Paul George shoots it, I think it's going in. Every time. Middleton too. Every time. They look great. They're balanced. Even when they're fading away, they know exactly what they're doing. Those are good shots, especially to me, you got to get in the paint because you increase the chance of getting a foul call on you if you at least get one foot in the paint. That's exactly how we teach it. I want to point out to you something. I want to get your opinion on John Collins.
I love John Collins.
I'm so proud of him. I'm so proud of a guy who didn't get the extension he wanted. And I don't know what his value is on the Hawks. I don't know what his value is in the league because this is just the postseason. He was good in the regular season, not amazing. But he's okay when he doesn't get a lot of touches. He goes and gets them. So one of the things that when the Bucks decide to switch, fine. You're not drop coverage or switching. But what the Hawks will do is make sure they get a little dude to guard that monster. And he is making you pay at the rim. And people sometimes say, well, it doesn't matter with the offensive glass. Yeah, it does.
Sure it does.
Margins matter. If it doesn't matter if you win by 20 anyway. But in these games that are so tight, right, where when Kawhi made his three at the end of the third quarter, I thought, when he banked it in from half court, I thought that might be the difference in the game. Yeah, that might be the difference in the game right there. One shot. These games are so tight. So you got to be able to keep Capella and John Collins off the glass when you're in your switching lineups. And I give Nate and the Hawks a lot of credit for recognizing this is how we can hurt them when they get to the switching lineups.
You are 100% correct because that Paul George 3 at the buzzer pushed the lead to 8 when it could have been 5 to start, right? And psychologically, that's a difference, right? Like that's a very different situation. On John Collins, I think he's phenomenal. He's going to be a restricted free agent this summer. the Hawks got to pay him, man,
I
because
think so.
teams around the league will easily pay that dude. Like, look, he's what is he, 6'10 ish, 6'11, somewhere in that range. He's athletic. He can shoot the three, right? He's got a little bit of a face-up game. He can guard. He can rebound. Like, and he's starting to play make a little bit. He's passing well. Like, look, and he's, what is he, 23, maybe 24? He's young. This is a guy who can really, I think, in his timeline works with everybody over there, with Trae, with Kevin Huerter, with DeAndre Hunter, with Cam Reddish. Like, look, I don't know. I mean, well, we do know, thanks to Henry's brilliant reporting, the owner of the Hawks got plenty of money. So figure out, like, I don't care. Go, and I get it. Like, we're only this team who want to go into luxury tax. You are a conference finalist this year. I don't care. Go into the luxury tax to keep this team together, because next year the East is going to be better, right? Like, the Nets are going to be healthy. Boston's got to move to make. Miami's got to move to make. Like, Milwaukee's still going to be there. Philadelphia, we presume, will make a move and get better. It's kind of like you're in there now and you're young. Like, don't take this for granted. Like, no problem. We'll be back next year. No guarantees. I'm all in. And he might actually, coach, he might get a rookie max extension. Like, he's that good. Look, some team's going to offer him a ton. They might just do it to poison pill it, right? They may just throw it out there to poison pill the Hawks. And if I was a competitor, I'd do it. Like,
no, you made a bunch of good points there. He's young. I like your point about the age all being connected. Capella's their oldest guy of their core. Gallinari is a mercenary, which is fine. He can get better. Yeah. And here's the other thing too, is you better have somebody else that can go off, because your best player might miss a game or two, as we're seeing in these playoffs, right?
For sure.
This, like, how much is Terrence Mann worth? And amazingly, they got 2 more years with him. He's got a non-guaranteed deal and then a team option. He did a 4-year deal. Now, the last time that happened, I don't mean to change it to Team Man, but you'll get my point in a minute. Yeah. Daryl Morey drafted Chandler Parsons in the 2nd round from University of Florida and signed him to a very, very team-friendly 4-year deal above the minimum, so he had to sign it. It's almost like being a first-round pick, but nowhere close to full pay of a first-round pick, and team options and all of that. And he actually kind of let Chandler out in year 4 and paid him. Yep. Because he was starting for them. The team man should be doing the same thing. And so my point is, the Clippers wouldn't be 2-1 in this. They wouldn't be in this series. If it weren't for Team Man 39 in Game 6
for sure
last series, Reggie Jackson. Like, you better have someone. Well, who on the Hawks can really go off? Maybe Bogdanovich, because he's injured right now.
He's injured.
And maybe DeAndre Hunter. And that'll be their decision making, is, do we pay John Collins knowing we think Hunter can eventually have some 30-point games in him when he's healthy? It's a fair question.
It is.
They pay what you said is right. You've got him. He's your guy.
He's your guy.
He can get much better. He can be a floor spacer. He can be more of a scorer. You can do more things with more talent. And Hunter's got 2 more years before you have to worry about it. You can extend him. You don't got to pay him for another full 2 seasons. So I think the Hawks are nuts to lose him.
Yeah, I agree. But, we'll crazier things have happened, Coach. I do want to talk about Trae Young for a minute. Look, I will say this. We talk about the Luka comparison, and you say it all the time, and I say it too. I stole it from you. Try to tell Atlanta Hawks fans that they got the wrong person in that Luka Doncic trade. And look, I'm going to be dead honest with you. If you look at their numbers wise and what they do, what is the actual difference between Trae and Luka? All I'm going to say is Luka's 6'8" and Trae's 6'1" or whatever he is. Like, if he was 7 inches taller, Trae could get you 8, 9, 10, whatever Luka does. Playmaking, they both play make well. They both shoot the 3 well. Like, is Luka really that much of a better player than Trae Young in these playoffs? I don't think so.
So I think there's only one difference, and that is on the defensive end of the court. However, and of course, it helps that Luka is so much bigger to play defense. He's just in the way more. What Nate McMillan has Trae doing defensively now. In fact, I just read an article. I posted the article, Judy, with Nate McMillan and Trae. We'll talk about trust in a minute. Yeah. And that'll lead us into these 3 great coaches that we're seeing right now. This is Nate McMillan told Trae exactly what he should have told Trae. Like, dude, you're a tiny man. This is not a quote. I'm just telling you. You're a little dude. But you're quick as hell with amazing instincts. So fuck things up, right? Go for steals, bother people, be a presence. Don't just let them come to you. Like, that's how Iverson did it. I always say there's two kinds of players in the NBA. It's very hard to break them down that easily. Guys that administer punishment, guys that can take it. Okay? The ones that administer it can typically take it too. Trae Young can take all the punishment he wants, just like Iverson could. So you bring it all. Well, but can you also administer some with your quickness, not your power? And no one's just attacking Trae.
Right.
Now, maybe during the regular season, he's going to be one of these guys that doesn't have very good numbers, has terrible numbers in the regular season because it just requires too much energy for all the offense he has to deliver. Another reason why you pay John Collins is Trae won't have to do as much. He may want to. It's a different story. He won't have to because he'll have more firepower around him, right? So, but in the regular season, Klay Thompson stopped guarding people 4 years ago. Didn't stop him from being this amazing defender in the postseason. LeBron, until he got the Lakers, stopped guarding for years, right? Until the postseason. So who cares if Trae Young doesn't really guard you on defense anymore? His offense overwhelmingly makes up for his defense.
Right. The
only difference in he and Luka, they're almost clones offensively in terms of impact. You can look up their EPM numbers on dunks and threes. If Luka's slightly better, we're talking about a hair of difference. And I think Trae has found another level. I really do.
Yeah.
So like this guy is now acting like he might be the MVP of the league one day.
I mean, it's incredible the way he's playing.
Yeah.
I'm loving it.
Yeah. Yeah.
I want to talk to you about confidence, Coach, because this is your wheelhouse, breathing spirit into others.
Yeah.
So this quote that you pulled up from this article on ESPN was great. And it's Rayford Young, who's Trae's dad, talking about Trae. The way Trae stands at attention when Coach McMillan speaks, the way he looks him in the eye for the duration of those timeouts, it's night and day compared to previous coaches. Trae believes in Nate. Nate believes in Trae. And of course, we know how much belief, anybody, forget about a basketball player, what it feels like as a human being when someone else believes in you to do something, what that allows you to do. We, of course, love the numbers here and the advanced numbers, and we always talk about it. But there's something so valuable about the confidence that Trae Young plays with and what it does for his teammates. I don't know how to measure it. I don't know what it means, but I know it means something. And I know these guys look around and they go, we got that motherfucker. Like, we're good. Like, can you talk about what that does, what that does inspiration-wise for a team?
I mean, I would have said exactly what you just said. We got that motherfucker on our team. So here's what that does. It means when you're down 12 with 4 to play and you're on defense, you're thinking he might go 9 straight points in 40 seconds if I guard. I've got to stay locked in every possession because I got that scorer, and passer. Trae Young's a great passer. I went back and was looking at my tweets from his rookie year. And early on, I noticed how willing he was to hit the ball ahead. Like Rubio does that, but Rubio can't score. If Rubio didn't hit the ball ahead, he'd be in Spain. Right? Trae Young can really score, and yet he was super willing. It's why you have to like LaMelo Ball that way. It's what I love most about LaMelo when I didn't like a lot of things. That dude can really pass. And how much fun is it to play with someone that likes to shoot, but also is willing to pass? In Trae's case, he can really shoot and score very well, as we've seen. So it means you buy in longer that, we can win this game. And we have a chance in this series. They beat the Knicks as the underdog. Obviously, they beat the Sixers as the underdog. These are 2 top 4 defenses, and so so you're setting screens a little bit better. You're running a little bit faster. You're focused a little bit more because you think it's going to end up being a win, right? If you're in a contract year, just being fair, well, then your motivation always is about that. Okay, so even if the team is not going to win this game or the series, I'm talking about regular season, postseason, I'm still playing for my contract, but we're past that. So in the postseason, there are times you can see when teams give up. We've seen it plenty of times in that particular game, and the Hawks just don't do that. And I think a lot of it's because they got that monster magician on their side, and he's willing to pass the ball.
Yeah,
and I think that's such. The article that I put on there, I think our friend Jackie McBone wrote it, where Trae's quoted as saying, after his terrible game against, I think it was the last game where 2 games ago. It was game 7 against Sixers. After they broke the huddle, Nate McMillan said to him, "Take us home." And Trae was thinking, as bad as I played this guy. Yeah. And so now we get into what I think the real value is of Ty Lue and Nate McMillan and Monty Williams. And I've coached kids that look like everything you can imagine in this world. I mean, I've coached Georgians, and I don't mean the state of Georgia. I mean from the country of Georgia. I've coached everywhere, all over the world, at least 100 nations. It doesn't matter about the color of your skin if you don't have it. And so does it help those 3 black head coaches that they do have black skin? 1%, 2%, I don't know the number. They're genuine people. And the one thing I've always said about NBA athletes is they have been hustled their whole life, and they know how to hustle in many cases. They have no choice. If you're being hustled, you better have some game coming back. You better have some charisma coming back, some chutzpah, as we like to say in Yiddish. But they respond to genuineness and intellectual capacity. And so that's where I think people are missing. I love what you mentioned the Ty Lue LeBron conversation. We all know LeBron's the computer genius, right? But he's not going to out-genius Ty Lue. Now, Ty Lue may have to spend 4 more hours studying. I don't know.
Right.
I mean, that's how smart LeBron is, and he's playing the game right now. But you're still not going to get anything past Ty Lue or Monty or Nate. These guys have been around. Nate McMillan was with the dream teams, right? And I watched those games. He wasn't a bystander.
Right.
Like, this guy has coached the world's best players for years, decade plus, and he played at a high level and made a final. So when Nate McMillan, who carries himself so gracefully and professionally and has an intellectual capacity that's very obvious to anyone that comes across him, when he says to Trae Young, "Take us home," I mean, that's Niagara Falls of emotion into that little body. Like, oh my God, this guy's giving me permission to do my thing, and he did, right? And so that's what's happening. That's what's happening with Ty. And when you factor in, you don't have to suffer a tragedy to add more gravitas to your game. But it is what it is. These guys know that this guy, you think he's scared of an NBA playoff game? Like, you think that's pressure? Come on now.
Yeah.
So I think what these 3 guys have, and I'm going to quote my dear student Corey Brewer, who said to me 4 or 5 years ago, I don't know if I ever told you this, I told Henry, he said, "Coach, I'm worried about the next generation because even the bad players are so rich now. There's so much money." And I think he's right. But this is why these genius coaches, these 3 men, are the future. It's because they can reach that part of every player where it's not about money. It's the boy that just wants to win at the highest level. He's dreamed it his whole life. Now they're grown men who still have the little boy dream. And these men can help them achieve that. And you can't ignore that. It takes a psychopath to ignore that. But we would all be chomping at the bit to play for them too.
For sure.
Because they speak to you at the most organic level that all these guys know. And so we're seeing 3 geniuses working at the human condition. The X and O part is separate. That's the easy part, quite honestly. Plenty of guys can do the X and O. Rick Adelman could X and O you to death. He could never do what these guys can do. And we're seeing Bud struggle with that. If Bud can get through this series, good for him. You can be white and do that too. Pop did it. Expulsors does it. All right. These 3 guys are showing us in real time what it's like to really inspire young professional basketball players to play their best and to be together. All of them are trying to share the ball. They're helping each other. There's no disunity. It's impressive to watch.
Well, at the end of the day, it's still a people business, right? Like, it's about people. And again, to your point, Coach, inspiring and making them believe. Got a couple things we want to get through before we get to our parting shots. So in Dallas, Coach, things are shaking up. We got Nico Harrison, who's one of Nike's lead executives. He's going to be head of basketball operations over there in Dallas.
Is that the official title?
Yeah, he's going to be.
Okay.
Yep, he's going to be either president or vice president of basketball operations. Okay. And Jason Kidd is set to become the next head coach there. Your quick, just initial thoughts on that read?
Thumbs down. I just gave this very impassioned speech. I've never felt that from
Jason Kidd's the opposite of that.
Nico, I'm fine with that. Like, I like out of the box hiring. I know Mark, and I've dealt with Mark and negotiated with Mark, and it's weird how all this is playing out. I would tell you this: Rick Carlisle made a comment he tweeted out. Maybe he didn't tweet. Maybe it was a quote. It's probably a quote, not a tweet, where he said Jason Kidd's the right guy for Luka.
Yeah, he did. Yeah.
I happen to know that those 2 kid and Rick Carlisle
Don't
had
get
major
along.
problems.
Oh yeah, no doubt.
Doesn't mean they didn't eventually figure it out, but I know for a fact they had major problems. So to give Luke what he wants, fine. I just don't know if that's the answer. And I'm a big believer that you can get better as coaches. Nate and Ty and Monty all have, as so did Spoelstra and Stan Van Gundy and everybody else. You can get better as a coach. So he needs to get better as a coach. But it's just weird how things are going down there. And it's just amazing. A year ago, you would have easily ranked Dallas as the hotter stock versus Atlanta, Luka versus Trae.
Right.
I don't feel that's the case at all right now.
Not I don't at all. Not at all. And the Jason Kidd thing, I'm with you. Let's see if he improved or got any better.
Yeah.
We don't know. The Nico hiring, I think, look, we're seeing the power of the shoe companies, right? And how influential they are. In our chat, in our text chat, I said to Henry, Nike's got a $211 billion market cap. $211 billion market cap. That is 10 times the size of the NBA, right? Like that. These shoe companies are important. And look at this as teams figuring out, these guys who work at these companies like Nike and Adidas and whomever have known these kids since they were like 8 years old. That matters, right? Because when you're trying to work that thing and it's like, hey, Mark says we want to get player X, Nico can be like, all right, let me go talk to so-and-so, right? And just to, grease the wheels, as they say, warm him up to make sure that he's like, I think this will be a good spot for you. And that's something valuable, I think, that Mark has. Are the new teams good for the league, Coach? We're going to have a brand new champion and a team that hasn't won a chip in 50 years, like these squads. We always worry about the NBA post LeBron, post Steph Curry. Man, let's just say it's Atlanta and Phoenix. You got this. Trae Young will happily play the villain in whatever story you want to tell on TV. He actually is comfortable in that role. You got Trae Young you can promote. You got Devin Booker you can promote. DeAndre Ayton. I mean, I think this is wonderful for the league. What are your thoughts on these new teams on the big stage?
Well, I want Judy to re-show that little picture because of the ratings and everything. But before I say that, here's what's amazing at Trae Young. When you say villain, maybe the old white dudes from the opponent's teams fans don't like him, but to my 20-year-old son, his generation,
kids love him. Oh yeah.
So if you're the NBA, like, are you kidding me? I get a bunch of old people who are white not liking him, but all the young cats, no matter what color skin, love him. Like, that's gold, right? Gold. He's a kid. He's young. Yes. He's going to get so much better. I think he's going to get so much better. Although he's already so smart on the court. Like, that's not going to prove that much. He just already reads the game so well. But yeah, so up 39% from last year. And I realized it was just last year in the bubble and the pandemic. I don't know how it compares to 2019. But those numbers, it's game 7, Bucks at net, 6.9 million. Hawks Sixers, 6.2 million. That's a lot of people.
That is.
In today's world, that's a lot of people. Global viewership up 22%, it says on League Pass. I think a lot of people have always said this, Jarod, that only a few players carry the story. Yes. And we know who they are. Curry, LeBron.
Right.
It's got to be the story. It's got to be the narrative. It's got to be something exciting. The games are fun to watch. The way the teams are unified, I think, is just not a lot of drama. Even Brooklyn, you got to give them credit for all the drama of bringing those 3 stars and whatever. It was a relatively drama-free season for them.
Their issue was injuries. They had that was their thing. Like, dudes were hurt.
I think that's it's just a good way to look at it. So I'm fired up. I think it's great. I also love that every team seems to have different heroes. And we just have so much talent. There's so much talent in this league. And we're seeing that,
And the last thing on Trae Young, he's also going to appeal to the casual fan because he looks like an everyman.
Yeah.
Right? In a land of giants, he's a Lilliputian, right? Like, he's just super tiny. So they're like, oh, I can relate to that. He's my size, even though, he ain't. And he's way more athletic than you are. But that's a different story for a different day. Scottie Pippen is selling a brand new bourbon, and he had a lengthy interview and a new book coming out. He had a lengthy interview with Tyler Tynes of GQ. And I know you wanted to touch on something that he said in that interview.
Yeah, I thought it was pretty interesting. I didn't know about the bourbon. I didn't read this part. I'm so stupid. I think tomorrow night, my wife and I are going to watch a bourbon documentary and enjoy some bourbon. So yeah, he was saying, like, Philadelphia, how can you be surprised at this? He must not like Doc Rivers. This is really a trashing of Doc Rivers, right?
It is.
I don't know the history of their relationship, but he doesn't like Doc Rivers. he was trashing Philly for saying, this is who Ben Simmons is. He's afraid to shoot the ball in the fourth quarter. You played him all year in the fourth quarter, knowing this would happen. I don't necessarily agree with what he has to say on that. I do think that it's an untenable situation in almost every case. And I'm friends with Daryl and I'm rooting for him. To get Ben Simmons to come back to that fan base, absent real change, is going to be hard. But what do you think of it?
Scotty is one of my favorite players of all time. I just enjoy anytime he speaks. Look, I think he has a lot of things he wants to get off his chest, right? Talking about narratives. Look, it's only so long you can talk to somebody about being a Robin in a Batman Robin scenario where they're like, look, man, I played Batman a lot of times too. And he certainly did. But revisionist history does this thing to our collective psyche. Was Jordan does he have the better career resume? All that? Of course, we know that. But Scottie Pippen did a lot of Batman things in those championship runs. Like, as good as Michael Jordan is, 6 titles don't happen without Scottie Pippen. That's just, anyone who knows basketball knows that. But otherwise, look, I think we need people like Scottie talking his truth and just saying what's happening and what he sees. I do think, to your point, though, I think it's untenable in Philly. I know Rich and Daryl and Doc are like talking, but to me that means, we're talking to figure out where you're going next. Because I don't think the environment is right there for what he needs. You and I talk about this all the time, Coach. There are players who can get chastised publicly, and that works for them. There are players who need to be, no. You need love, wrap your arms, and coddling. And you need someone who can do all those things, right? It's not about reaching one guy. It's how do I reach all 15 or as many of the 15 as possible. And for whatever reason, that incubation period or incubation environment there ain't good for that particular guy. And he's a really important one because for all his flaws, this is a 24, 25-year-old all NBA and all NBA defensive player, right? So who's 6'10" and super good at a lot of things. So somebody's got to figure that out. I just don't know that Philly is going to be the right place for that anymore going forward. All right, before we go, Coach, our parting shots. You go first.
So last night, my wife and I watched the LFG. It's called LFG. It stands for Let's Fucking Go, which they let you know the first seconds of the documentary. It's about the U.S. women's soccer team and their fight to be paid equally to the men who suck compared to them. and to be very fair, I want to make sure I don't suck up any of your time. I've always asked the question, well, what are the revenues like? I didn't really know. I could understand it at least from that point. It turns out they make more money than men too, as a gross revenue thing. I'm not saying that has to happen to pay them equally. I quite frankly think our country has enough money where we could pay our national teams the same regardless of revenue, but they have that on their side too. And as amazing as these women are, the fact that U.S. soccer, even now, right now, today or yesterday, are arguing such ridiculous things to make it seem like they haven't earned the exact same money the men have, equal pay. It's a terrible embarrassment, but it's a great 2 hours, and you're going to love the women's soccer team after watching this, I promise.
I'm definitely going to watch that. And when I do get patriotic and cheer for USA in soccer, it's never the men. It's always the women. So I'll definitely watch that. My parting shot is, look, 2 years ago at this time, one of the greatest basketball players we've ever seen suffered a tragic injury in the finals against Toronto Raptors, an Achilles tendon injury. And of course, I'm talking about Kevin Durant. And I think what we all need to remember is what we've seen this year from him, not just the regular season, but in that postseason run, coming off that injury, which is either a career ender or a career definer. You either don't come back or you come back and you are a shell of yourself, like nowhere near what you can be. I mean, he was essentially a 50, 40, 90 guy, like the same dude he's always been. And, those playoff runs with all those guys hurt and what he was able to do, that was incredible. And again, I think we take these things for granted. We're like, oh yeah, it's like we were not promised of seeing this version of Kevin Durant again. And the fact that we are seeing it and it looks like he's good, guys, appreciate it, man, because when these dudes go away, you're going to be like, oh man, like that, I'm telling you. So appreciate the greatness you're seeing from Kevin Durant coming off an Achilles tendon injury.
I love it. I completely agree. He's, I was already just thinking, is he top 10? Like I'm having this conversation now. Is he top 10 all time? And there's two ways to look at it in our last 30 seconds, in terms of accomplishment or just pure talent over a good period of time. They're different things.
Yep.
I always try to argue that it's not talking about accomplishment, 6 rings, 5 rings.
Right.
In terms of the best 10 players of all time for a long period of time, I think he probably has to be in the list.
100%. And I love that point you make. That's what we do. We're not arguing career resume. It's straight up basketball, you're picking dudes on a playground. How are you picking more than 10 dudes ahead of that guy? I don't think you are.
Yeah, he's just incredible. Okay, we got you, Judy.
All right, guys, have a great weekend. Enjoy yourselves. We'll see you on Monday.